Chapter 2348. 2 dantians. After an unknown amount of time, the lava gradually extinguished, turning into a solid rock river that lay under the mountains of the martial god realm. In the river, a slender figure lay there. His skin was glossy, and if one looked carefully, the blood vessels under his skin seemed to be flowing like lava. After being refined by the flame of time and space, Lin Ling's god-demon body improved again, reaching 5,000 universe power. Time quietly passed, and the rock river was very quiet. Small beasts walked by and looked at the youth lying on the ground. They all quietly approached, because the youth gave them a very comfortable feeling. Warm sunlight slowly sprinkled down at this moment, bathing all things under a thin veil. The young man above the river of rocks had his long hair draped down, and he had the lazy aura of a king. On his handsome face, his slender eyelashes moved slightly under the sunlight. Oh! Lin Ling opened his eyes. His left eye had a large number of Dao seals, and his right eye had a mysterious ancient tablet. Of course, the strangeness of his eyes quickly disappeared. The space-time divine tablet has completely returned. Lin Ling revealed a gratified smile. My left eye is one of the 6 great god eyes, and my right eye is one of the 9 great flames. My talent has reached the peak. Primal Chaos Divine Formula. Then, Lin Ling shouted, and the 3 cultivation of essence, energy and spirit in his body turned into a mysterious power that crazily rotated. His physical strength had reached a new level, and so had his soul power. His flame talent had returned, and his 3 domains had all stepped into the ranks of a new world. Boom boom boom. Lin Ling's body rumbled, and a new dantian was opened up. This dantian was weak at first, but it gradually grew until it became a boundary spirit dantian. In this way Lin Ling had 2 dantians. As everyone knew, the dantian was the source of power. Any martial arts and world essence came from there, but a martial artist only had 1 dantian. This was the law of heaven and earth. However, Lin Ling had 2 dantians, and this was the abnormal part of the Primal Chaos Divine Formula. What did it mean to have 2 dantians? This meant that if Lin Ling fought a second-stage world king, he would be able to easily kill his opponent. If one dantian's world essence was exhausted, he could use a second one. Moreover, if 2 dantians' world essences fused together, his strength would reach a terrifying limit. To fight a 4th-level world king wasn't difficult at all. In fact, if he burned his world essence, that would be terrifying. The first stage of the Primal Chaos Divine Formula is complete. After a long time, Lin Ling smiled. His strength had greatly increased. However, he used the second dantian to hide the flame of time and space. That dantian was also a flame dantian, also known as the flame world. As for his first dantian, he used it to cultivate his Omega Sword Dao. After that, Lin Ling changed into clean clothes, stroked the little beasts around him, and strode away. Shi Wenba, can't a mountain hide 2 tigers? In my eyes, you're really not a tiger. At this moment, he was once again like a proud and aloof swordsman as he embarked on his journey. Clouds swirled around the green mountain, a gentle wind blew, a waterfall broke free, cold and clear. The ancient green mountain moved like ink. Clouds and mist drifted in the sky. From time to time, martial artists would pass through the skies or walk along the green mountain. This place wasn't too far from the great swamp of the 8 gods' heavenly palace. Thus, these people had heard the news, and also wanted to enter the 8 gods' heavenly palace. But they were clearly too late. What? The 8 gods' heavenly palace is closed? Yes, everyone that entered the 8 gods' heavenly palace came out. They can't enter the next level. Then we didn't come here in vain. In the immortal land of ink and green mountains, many martial artists were sighing, extremely regretful. It is said that in the 2nd level of earth travel, many people obtained good harvests. The 3 great leaders were also the same, but the most precious treasure seems to have been missed. It is said that someone obtained the time fire. TSK, what kind of treasure is that? But if it can appear in the 8 gods' heavenly palace, that strange flame must be extraordinary. But if we have to talk about who is the most fierce in the 8 gods' heavenly palace, it is without a doubt Lin Ling of the Martial God Battalion. Who is Lin Ling? Could he be a new rising genius? How does he compare to the 9 heavens of the Qing province? This person has just risen, so of course he cannot compare to the 9 heavens. But this person played with a group of old monsters. It is said that many experts died in his hands, including old monster Lone Mountain. What a powerful junior! In the mountain range, many martial artists were chatting as they walked. They had missed the 8 gods' heavenly palace, but they were extremely curious about what happened there. At this moment, Lin Ling was slowly walking on the ancient mountain path. He also heard the voices in the distance. It seems like it is as I guessed. Those people did not enter the 3rd level. They should have all left by now. Lin Ling said with a smile. Even Li Xiaoyao was stopped at the 2nd level. Naturally, no one else could enter the 3rd level. Quickly find Shi Wenba, then return to the martial god battalion. Lin Ling continued walking, his soul force gushing out like water. He wanted to find Shi Wenba. He had to kill this person, not only for himself, but also for Lu Yi, who had died tragically. It's them? Then, Lin Ling could not help but smile. At this moment, on the other side of the mountain, several figures were walking along the mountain path. They were Little Peach and the others. I didn't expect Shi Wenba to be such a person. We were all wrong about him. Unfortunately, Lin Ling is dead. Otherwise, Lin Ling would not have let Shi Wenba go. The current Shi Wenba disdains to associate with us. Little Peach and the others spoke as they walked. In fact, they had left the 8 gods' heavenly palace for 3 months. In the beginning, they still followed Shi Wenba, but gradually, they found that Shi Wenba did not care about them at all. He was even more aloof in front of them. Therefore, they chose to leave in the end. They and Shi Wenba were people of 2 different worlds. The current Shi Wenba was no longer the past guide. There were many people who wanted to recruit him. As for them, they were still lowly guides. Haha, leaving without saying goodbye. Isn't that a bit too immoral? But at this time, 3 figures walked out from the dense forest in front of them. 2 were middle-aged men, and 1 was an old man. Their strength was at the 1st level of the World King realm. It's you, Senior Jianbingyi. Little Peach and the others stopped, their complexions changing. They recognized these 3 people because during this time, they had followed Shi Wenba to a city called 9 Dragons City. Shi Wenba was highly valued in the city, and the city lord had even betrothed his daughter to Shi Wenba. And that old man Jianbingyi was the city lord's subordinate. What do you want to do? Sensing that these 3 people had ill intentions, Little Peach and the others were on guard. You left without saying goodbye. That is not placing 9 Dragons City in your eyes. So, what do you think we want to do? The old man lightly said. Chapter 2349. I never promised not to kill you. Haha, haha. Who would have thought that not only would these people not be startled, but they would instead laugh? The old man shook his head. You are too naive, because the one who wants to kill you is Shi Wenba. If you stay by his side, then you won't die. But if you leave him, then you will die. This is because you know too many things. Moreover, you have cultivation methods from the 8 Divinity Heavenly Palace that Shi Wenba has asked us to take back for him. Haha, Shi Wenba wants to kill us? Haha. Hearing this, Little Peach and the others couldn't believe their ears. They had come from 10,000 worlds with Shi Wenba. They had shared joys and sorrows together, weathering trials and tribulations together. But after Shi Wenba soared into the heavens, they had been abandoned. Some people can only share trials and tribulations, not riches and honor. Now that Shi Wenba is about to rise, he will inevitably enter the 3 great academies of Blue Province. You know too many of his secrets, so how could he possibly allow you to live? Haha. The old man slowly walked forwards, speaking as he did so. Dang dang dang. Seeing this, Little Peach and the others retreated, their faces pale. Although they believed the old man's words, the truth was still a heavy blow to them. This was because as long as they were alive, they wouldn't be able to threaten Shi Wenba. But Shi Wenba still wanted to eliminate them by the roots. This was completely different from the kind and gentle man in their memories. You are only pitiful guides. If you die here, no one will care, and no one will help you. Haha. The old man's complexion became even colder. Killing Little Peach and the others was no different from stepping on weeds on the side of the road. The 2 people beside him also sneered. They clenched their fists and released them, killing intent gushing out from them. However, just as they were about to attack, a calm voice sounded out. "I can help them." As this voice sounded out, the entire Green Mountain seemed to fall silent. Everyone turned to see a youth in blue and white robes slowly walking down the ancient rocky mountain path. He had an ancient sword and long hair. It was a startling sight. Little Peach and the others stared at this figure, not believing their own eyes. It was him. "Sir, this is a matter of our 9 Dragons city. You shouldn't interfere." The old man frowned. He could feel that this newcomer's strength was at the second level of the World King realm, a higher boundary than himself. Of course, he had 3 people on his side, so he wasn't too worried. What if I insist on interfering? However, the young man's voice also turned cold, carrying a sharp killing intent. That would mean offending our 9 Dragons city. Moreover, these people are only slaves. Why would your excellency provoke us for a few slaves? Most importantly, the person who wants to kill these slaves is called Shi Wenba. It was like the king of hell's soul summoning order. Bang! One of the middle-aged men instantly died, suppressed to death by Lin Ling's massive soul force. To Little Peach and the others, these people were existences that they could only look up to. But to Lin Ling, they weren't even worth mentioning. He is in 9 Dragons City. He is about to become the son-in-law of the city lord. Moreover, Lord Shi Wenba wants to borrow the name of 9 Dragons City to enter the 3 great academies of Blue Province. The other man fell to his knees, constantly begging for mercy. This youth's methods were simple and direct. Even if he didn't want to speak, he had to. "What is your city lord's strength, and what powerhouses are nearby?" Lin Ling asked without expression. "Our city lord is at the 3rd stage of the World King realm, and there are no powerhouses nearby. But I heard that Shi Wenba is someone from the 2 great heavens of Blue Province. Thus our city lord tried to recruit him." The man didn't dare to look at Lin Ling. He never thought that just a moment ago, he could decide the fate of Little Peach and the others. But in the next moment his fate would be decided by someone else. The matters of life were truly filled with twists and turns. Destiny was the most mysterious of all. Hearing this, Lin Ling nodded. As he had guessed, after Shi Wenba revealed his formidable talent, many powerhouses began to try to recruit him. However, in Lin Ling's heart, Shi Wenba had just risen and now he was about to fall. "Go die." Lin Ling nodded. Then he punched out, smashing that man to pieces. "I've already told you why you want to kill me." The man cried out before he died, as if he hadn't died in peace. "I didn't agree to not kill you," Lin Ling said without looking at him. These people wanted to kill Little Peach and the others, thus they were Lin Ling's enemies. Then, Lin Ling turned and looked at Little Peach and the others. "Big brother Lin Ling. You don't care, but I want to care about you." Lin Ling's momentum was unstoppable. His fist punched out, seeming as if it carried the world with it, as it crashed into the old man. "You want to ignore me with just a few words?" If today's Lin Ling was weaker than this old man, and Lin Ling said he didn't care, would this old man let him go? This was clearly impossible. "Am I going to die here?" The old man's pupils gradually widened. He looked towards the distant Su Jiulong, hoping that Su Jiulong would help him. However, he was disappointed. In the distance, Su Jiulong wasn't even looking at him. Instead, he was staring at Lin Ling. It was clear that he wanted the city lord to owe him a favor. But if he failed, he would die here forever. Boom! After killing the old man with a single punch, Lin Ling calmly stood there. That black robe caused the entire city to fall silent. "So powerful," many people secretly exclaimed, because the entire process was too direct and efficient. As for Shi Wenba, he narrowed his eyes. Through the previous battle, he seemed to have seen through the demon-masked youth's strength. This youth probably didn't have the power of 2 worlds, and was drawing on the power of 10,000 worlds. Otherwise, when facing the old man's attack, he would have already erupted with all his world essence. And such strength, Shi Wenba wasn't afraid. "Little friend, let me give you a piece of advice. Don't be too arrogant." Shi Wenba spoke. His tone was calm, as if he was giving advice to Lin Ling like a senior. Hearing this, Lin Ling laughed. The more he looked at Shi Wenba, the more disgusted he felt. This fellow had always been pretending, deceiving others. The current me can't be considered very arrogant, right? It's just SSO. Lin Ling directly retorted. His words caused many people to suck in a breath of cold air. They all felt that Lin Ling was too arrogant. But who would have known that Lin Ling felt that the previous arrogance was just as In that case, if Lin Ling was truly arrogant, what kind of cultivation realm would that be? What arrogance? A moment later, angry shouts rang out one after another. It was because Shi Wenba was deeply righteous. He wouldn't be angered even if others provoked him. But that demon-masked youth was too arrogant. He delivered a coffin and casually killed people. He was simply from hell. However, Lin Ling acted as if he didn't hear anything. He indifferently said, Shi Wenba, if you want to be favored by Lord Lan, you have to display even greater strength. So it seems like you have no choice but to refuse. Yes. He walked forward step by step. His expression was calm, but the flames in his heart were burning. He was boiling. He thought back to the time when he was in the Myriad Realms, when he had just arrived at the Martial God Realm. He thought back to his downfall, and he thought back to the sacrifices he had made. Today, he wanted everyone to know that he, Shi Wenba, had risen. Pa! He stretched out his right hand, and the multicolored flames danced. It was a ghastly sight. Boom! The entire golden martial platform started burning at this moment. Golden liquid. With one strike, I will defeat you. A fierce roar rang out. It was as if a shooting star had passed over the martial platform. Wherever it passed, the space was burned, and a dazzling tail was drawn out. Crackle! Time seemed to be burned, and all the energy of heaven and earth was suppressed in the flames. The fire of time and space was a flame that could burn space and time. Die! Shi Wenba's eyes turned red. He roared, wanting to vent everything. Boom! But in his eyes, the ghost-masked youth did not move at all, as if he did not know how powerful his flames were. In Shi Wenba's eyes, perhaps the youth had been scared silly. No matter how powerful your martial arts are, no matter how high your realm is, with a flame in my hand, no one can defeat me. He held the fire of time in his hand, and as if a taboo had been opened, he heavily slammed it on Lin Ling's chest. Boom! A deafening sound rang out. The power of the flame destroyed everything in its path. The entire golden martial platform shattered, and everything was burned. Crackle! The warriors who were closer to the martial platform were touched by a wisp of flame, and they were directly burned into nothingness. Any realm essence under the flame would be burned. The fire ancestor was so terrifying. What a terrifying talent. Moreover, that talent can still grow. Lord Lan could not help but stand up. His face was flushed red from excitement. As for Su Julong, who was beside him, he was calmly drinking wine. But it was obvious that his hand holding the wine cup was somewhat excited. Crackle! The flames were still burning, causing Nine Dragons City to be as hot as a volcano. As time passed, the crowd's eyes were glued to the center. At this moment, they wanted to see Shi Wenba's power. In fact, Shi Wenba was indeed emitting a dazzling light. His body was still burning with flames. He stretched out his hand, and his face was filled with joy. He almost roared at the sky. However, the next sentence caused him to fall from heaven to hell again. How pitiful. The last flame was only able to injure me a little. I really don't understand how a piece of trash like you is qualified to enter the 3 great academies. His voice drifted out like a gust of wind, causing the previously shocked crowd to widen their eyes. Crackle! At the center, the colorful flames seemed to recede, and then a slender figure appeared. It was the demon-masked youth. Chapter 2361. Armor removal. Oh my god. What's going on? What? This is the head of the Sea Burial Disorderly Phoenix. Deputy General Shan Yang's eyes almost popped out of their sockets when he heard Deputy General Hong Jing's voice. Because the Sea Burial Disorderly Phoenix was more powerful than him. Even he couldn't kill it. How could Lin Ling succeed? He rushed over, grabbed the head, and examined it. His old face became more and more serious. Because he was sure that it was the head of the Sea Burial Disorderly Phoenix. With his strength, he could naturally tell that it wasn't a fake head. Also, there was still blood flowing from the head. It was the blood of the blue phoenix, which was the symbol of the sea-burial disorderly phoenix. At this moment he held the head and stood there stupidly. Deputy General Shan Yang, may I ask what other crimes I have committed? At this moment, Lin Ling's powerful voice rang out, as if an army was pressing down on him. His silence earlier didn't mean that he admitted his guilt. He just wanted to see what tricks this old man was playing. And now it was time for the game to end. Deputy General, may I ask what other crimes Commander Lin Ling has committed? At this moment, the scout camp also shouted angrily, and their voices shook the 9 heavens. They were very excited. They didn't expect Lord Lin Ling to kill the sea-burial disorderly phoenix. This was too terrifying. Deputy General, may I ask what other crimes Commander Lin Ling has committed? Almost at the same time, the whole army also shouted questions, and the soldiers and horses were ready to move. This guy. Deputy General Hong Jing smiled. This result was beyond his imagination. Thump. Thump. Deputy General Shan Yang stepped back. The terrifying army around him made his face turn pale. Deputy General, may I ask what other crimes Commander Lin Ling has committed? However, at this moment, those orderly voices came crashing down like an avalanche. Not guilty. Deputy General Shan Yang gritted his teeth, and finally said something that he was very unwilling to accept. The imperial edict was still floating in the sky, but it was very ironic at this moment. Obviously, the person who issued the imperial edict didn't know that Lin Ling had accomplished these miracles. As a result, the imperial edict was useless because this was a groundless crime. Do you still have the military order? At this moment, Lin Ling was like an unsheathed sword full of sharpness, and he was as powerful as thunder. He and Deputy General Shan Yang's military edict. If Lin Ling, Deputy General Shan Yang had to kneel in the army and Deputy General Shan Yang, and Shan Yang's military edict. How arrogant Deputy General Shan Yang was. Shan Deputy General, Lin's Shan Yang, Shan Deputy General as was Shan Yang's Lin on Luan on Yang's. Is it? He looked at Qian Xianshan and said, beat him up. Kill him in front of them. Fierce. His aura was extremely fierce. However, at this moment, a streamer shot down from the sky. Then, 2 figures appeared in front of everyone. It was a man and a woman. The man's long hair was tied behind his head, and he wore a black robe. He seemed to be in high spirits. The woman wore a black dress, and she was so beautiful that she was captivating. Their harmonious beauty attracted the gazes of countless people, and many people felt that they were a perfect match for each other. However, after their initial shock, many people from the Martial God Battalion were delighted, because Lord Lin Ling had returned. Beautiful. Wow. Qian Taiji looked at the woman in the sky and licked his lips. At this moment, Lin Ling looked coldly at the scene below. Then, he walked down and walked toward Qian Taiji. Who is this soldier of yours? Is that your wife? Not bad. I will take her away later. Wow. Qian Taiji looked at Lin Ling and said while waving his fan. Hearing this, the soldiers of the War God Battalion were shocked. This guy could be arrogant in front of Qian Xianshan. However, he dared to be arrogant in front of Lin Ling? Is he looking for death? Sure enough, Lin Ling's eyes became even colder. He stopped in front of Qian Taiji. Qian Taiji also noticed that the person in front of him was not afraid of him. He raised his chin and stared at the person. He wanted to know what this soldier wanted to say. Who the fuck are you? Fuck. However, in the next moment, Lin Ling slapped him. It was a thunderous attack. Slap. Huang Fuidao and the others were so shocked that they almost fell to the ground. One must know that in the Martial God Battalion, there were actually many people who knew spirit formations. However, they only knew a little about it. At most, they would only be able to use black cloak or white cloak. It was already very good to be able to use blue cloak. Therefore, they had sought the help of Wind Without Trace, because he was a green robe. As the saying went, if a robe was less than blue, then calling oneself a boundary master would be futile. Only green-robed world spiritist would be able to enter the eyes of the various powers. Yet now, Their martial god battalion had actually concealed a green-robed world spiritist. That boy is so young. How could he be a green-robed world spiritist? That great General Cyan Rainbow also cried out in alarm. However, that was not the end of it. Strands of multicolored flames floated out dazzlingly. Chi-chi. Once the flames appeared, the martial god giant's left leg began to burn. There was a scar there. This time, the flames were used to heal the wound on the left leg. With the burning of the flames and the numerous mysterious barriers, the wound on the left leg rapidly healed. What sort of flames are those? This time, even Wind Without Trace was astonished. He had guessed that the mysterious youth would definitely have some ability. However, he had never imagined that the youth would actually possess such flames. After all, the majority of world spiritists were fire, lightning and light attribute world spiritists. Using those talents to forge spirit formations would allow them to achieve twice the results with half the effort. As for that mysterious youth, he was clearly a fire attribute world spiritist. However, the mysteriousness of his flames caused even Wind Without Trace to feel extremely envious. At that moment, Wind Without Trace was clearly unnecessary. There was no need for him to personally take care of the martial god giant. The two armies stared at the black-robed youth. At that moment, the youth was like a dazzling star that emitted boundless radiance. Falling flowers, flowing water, and the others were secretly excited. It seemed that they had still underestimated their lord's mysteriousness. It's done. Almost at the same time, Lin Ling's voice floated out. It's done. The two armies spoke at the same time. So fast. They had thought that the restoration would take at least 3 months. However, only an incense stick's worth of time had passed. Senior, is it really done? Wind Without Trace flew over and exclaimed in disbelief. It's just a puppet. How much time do you want to waste? I don't have that much time. Lin Ling said indifferently. His skill in forging spirit formations was extremely high. He had always been lacking in materials. This time it was just restoration and not forging. How much time would he need to waste? Most importantly, he possessed the space-time flame. As for the 81 war drums, after they were beaten, tens of millions of soldiers would appear. It was something that every marshal had to learn. According to the rules of the martial god battalion, anyone who could beat 10 war drums would be able to proudly leave the martial god battalion. This was a supreme honor. Today, the people from the martial god battalion had come to beat the war drums. Obviously, they knew that many people from the martial god battalion had failed, so they wanted to use this opportunity to attack the martial god battalion and prove that the martial god battalion was more powerful. The two armies quickly arrived at a canyon. The canyon was so deep that one couldn't see the bottom. From time to time, battle cries could be heard. Above the canyon, lightning flashed like snakes. Above the endless lightning, mysterious clouds drifted. One could vaguely see the war drums beating. This was the heaven-seeking war drum left behind by the predecessors. Lin Ling, if you want to leave the martial god battalion, you must beat the heaven-seeking war drum. However, since it's your first time here, there's no need to rush. You'll definitely succeed after some research. Huang Fuidao appeared beside Lin Ling and gave him some pointers. Lin Ling nodded. In fact, his main goal here was to beat the war drums and leave the martial god battalion. Dong dong dong. At the same time, the soundless sound of the war drums resounded. It was transmitted to everyone's hearts, making them feel as though they were being summoned by the war drums to prepare for battle. However, in reality, the war drums were silent. It was the momentum of the war drums that affected the army. These drums actually have souls. Lin Ling was secretly shocked. Through his eyes of time, he saw that every drum represented an army of millions. It represented a supreme military formation with an imposing aura. I'll go first. At this moment, the chess boy spoke. He was good at chess and had been here twice. Therefore, he was familiar with the heaven-seeking war drum. Go Commander Chess, go for it. Many people from the martial god battalion cheered immediately. They were looking forward to the chess boy beating the war drums. It's moving. At this moment, someone exclaimed. The chess boy shot into the clouds and disappeared without a trace. He was looking for the first drum. One had to know that there were 81 drums here. They were hidden very well. and had to be beaten according to order. Otherwise, they would fail. The war drums weren't static. Every 15 minutes, they would undergo earth-shattering changes. He'll definitely fail. Many soldiers from the Martial God Battalion mocked. They were here to trample on the battlefield. Naturally, they didn't want the Martial God Battalion to return victorious. What nonsense are you talking about? Many people from the Martial God Battalion refused to be outdone. Dong dong dong. At this moment the war drums resounded. We did it. Huang Fui Dao and the others laughed when they heard the drums. The first drum was beaten. Dong dong dong. However, their surprise didn't end there. The second drum was beaten, and it was even louder this time. If these drum beats were to be played in the myriad of worlds, it would be enough to shatter a world. Especially Lin Ling's world. A single drum could cause the world to collapse. Dong dong dong. The third drum followed closely behind. Nice. The soldiers of the Martial God Battalion cheered. As the saying goes, one can do it in one go. The chess boy had beaten the drums 3 times in a row. Dong dong dong. However, the deafening sound resounded once more. The fourth drum was beaten. The fifth drum. At this moment, the soldiers of the Martial God Battalion became nervous. Were they going to fail again? They could only watch as the commander of the Martial God Battalion bullied them. Calm down. However, Qian Taichi waved his fan and spoke indifferently. His tone was filled with confidence. However, the feathers on his fan were sparse at this moment, and it was slightly comical. Of course, his confidence wasn't without reason. After the fifth drum, the drum beats in the clouds disappeared. In the next moment, a figure fell from the clouds and smashed into the canyon. It was the chess boy. He had clearly failed. Ka ka ka. At the same time, thousands of lightning bolts appeared, forming a huge electric net below the chess boy. If the chess boy fell again, he would definitely be in danger. Oh no! Many people shouted. However, at this moment, a sword beam shot out at lightning speed. It pierced through the chess boy's armor and stabbed him into the canyon wall, preventing him from falling any further. Furthermore, the sword had pierced through the chess boy's clothes, leaving him completely unscathed. Thank you, Falling Flowers Flowing Water Sword. The chess boy wiped his sweat and looked at the side of the canyon. The one who attacked was Falling Flowers Flowing Water Sword. How lucky! Qian Taichi smiled disdainfully when he saw this. He looked at the army of the Martial God Battalion and said, "Let me tell you, don't think you'll be fine after failing. When you fall from the clouds, the lightning will seriously injure you. The weak will be killed immediately." Blossoming Flowing Water Sword roared. He couldn't let the God of War Battalion kill him. Dong dong dong. However, in the next moment, the sound of the drums reverberated. The seventh drum shook the heavens and earth. On both sides of the canyon, everyone cried out in alarm. However, Blossoming Flowing Water Sword could only bitterly smile, because the previous drum was a mistake. It could only be said that his luck was not bad. And after that, he had no clue at all. Alas! Blossoming Flowing Water Sword sighed, and appeared above the canyon. He had given up. If this continued, he would definitely be injured. Not bad. However, many people in the God of War Battalion were still happy for him. The seventh drum was already a very good result. As for the God of War Battalion, Qian Taichi shook his head in disdain. Many people saw his contemptuous expression, but they didn't care about his disdainful smile. At this moment, Lin Ling's eyes flashed, and he wanted to give it a try. When the chess boy and Blossoming Flowing Water Sword saw this, they hurriedly told Lin Ling their experiences. After all, this was Lin Ling's first time here. During this process, no one hit the drums. Obviously, everyone's confidence wasn't very strong. However, just as Lin Ling was about to go out, a figure suddenly moved faster than him. Let me show you what a war drum is. A suave figure passed through everyone's eyes. It was Qian Taichi. It had to be said that this time, he had completely swept away the embarrassing situation from before. He appeared to be graceful and extremely confident. However, it was undeniable that the person who proposed to hit the drums this time was Qian Taichi. Therefore, he dared to come here because he had absolute confidence. In an instant, many people in the God of War Battalion turned serious. The three generals also narrowed their eyes, and looked at General Green Rainbow. Indeed, he revealed an unfathomable smile. And that was indeed the case. Qiantechi struck. The drums shook the sky. The deafening sound continued to resound. The first drum. The second drum. The third drum. The fourth drum. This crazy guy hit the drums 5 times in a row. He overtook the chess boy in an instant. Master Qiantechi, go for it. Go. The God of War battalion immediately became excited, as if they had won the battle. Hee, the God of War battalion's heaven-seeking war drum? Even General Green Rainbow let out a satisfied sound. Of course, his voice was filled with contempt for the God of War battalion. Dong dong dong. Following this, the 6th beat of the drum could be heard. He's catching up to me. Clench. Blossoming flowing water sword immediately clenched his fist. The 6th drum was coming. Was Qiantechi going to be like him? Impossible. This was Qiantechi's first time here. He couldn't possibly surpass him. Dong dong dong. However, when the drums sounded, his face turned pale. The morale of the God of War battalion also plummeted. When the 7th drum sounded, it would be the same as blossoming flowing water sword. In that case, the God of War battalion would be inferior. After all, it was Qiantechi's first time here. Qiantechi hasn't come out yet. Is he going to sound the 8th drum? Many people exclaimed in shock, finding it unbelievable. He can't possibly succeed. The chess boy and the rest clenched their fists and shook their heads. Qiantechi had already sounded the drums 7 times in a row. That was already a miracle. It was impossible for him to surpass blossoming flowing water sword. The 8th drum was very difficult to sound. It was said that once it was sounded, there would be a change in the world. Dong dong dong. However, the more they were afraid of something, the thing they were afraid of would quietly arrive. In the sky, thousands of soldiers and horses appeared, slaughtering the world. That ancient aura shook the world. The 8th drum sounded. Could it be the Taisui charm drum? Huangfui Dao and the rest had ugly expressions. They didn't believe that Qiantechi's first time here would go so smoothly. There must be something hidden. They guessed that it was the Taisui charm drum. It was an extremely ancient drum formation. It was said that the heaven-seeking war drum was set up with this formation. Therefore, if Qiantechi had studied the Taisui charm drum, then it was naturally possible for him to sound the 8th drum. Damn it! Qiantechi had indeed come prepared. Hee. The heaven-seeking war drum belongs to the God of War battalion. But our God of War battalion has sounded the 8th drum. Doesn't the God of War battalion feel embarrassed? General Qinghong took the opportunity to raise his eyebrows. Behind him, the God of War battalion was also roaring. Dong dong dong. However, just as he finished speaking, another drum sounded. An even more terrifying phenomenon appeared in the sky. Countless divine beasts stomped on the ground, destroying the world. The 9th drum sounded. Hee, so it's the 9th drum. General Qinghong immediately corrected. The God of War battalion fell into a dead silence. All the soldiers' faces were extremely pale. At the same time, a figure shot out from the clouds in front. It was Qiantechi. He didn't dare to sound the 10th drum. After all, if he failed, he would be struck by lightning. He didn't dare to take the risk. Chapter 2373. One's glory, all's glory. As expected, the God of War battalion cheered as he walked over like an undefeatable God of War. The heaven-seeking war drum of the martial God battalion? Qiantechi looked at the martial God battalion with disdain. He had beaten the drum 9 times, which was enough for him to redeem himself. He had gotten back all the face he had lost for the God of War battalion. Moreover, he had definitely become the hero of the God of War battalion. At this moment, the entire canyon was filled with the cheers of the God of War battalion. The martial God battalion was very quiet. They were inferior, and could only endure the humiliation. As for the 3 generals, they were smiling bitterly in their hearts. However, they still pretended to be calm on the surface. However, at this moment, a figure suddenly shot into the clouds ahead. Lin Ling had made his move. He had gone to beat the drum without saying anything. In fact, after continuous observation, the heaven-seeking war drum was just SOSO to Lin Ling. His soul power was terrifying, and had already shrouded the entire cloud layer. His all-encompassing demonic eyes were even more demonic, as he had seen through the rhythm of the drum. This guy! The three generals had no idea of Lin Ling's confidence. They immediately smiled helplessly. It's Lord Lin Ling. He has also joined the battle. Perhaps he will create a miracle. I think it will be difficult. After all, this is Lord Lin Ling's first time here. He isn't familiar with the heaven-seeking war drum at all. He doesn't even know how big the clouds are. But this is also the first time that Qian Taichi has been here. Didn't he also beat the drum? This is different. Haven't you heard that Qian Taichi seems to have obtained some Taisui scroll? That's why he is familiar with this place. This Qian Taichi is too much. He has clearly done his homework. This isn't his first time here. At this moment, Lin Ling had undoubtedly attracted countless gazes. Many people were discussing him. As for the God of War battalion, disdainful voices sounded. After all, they had also heard that this was Lin Ling's first time here. This obviously wouldn't have any effect. Hehe. I think he might not even be able to beat 5 drums. Qian Taichi waved his fan and said as he walked. General Qinghong nodded. Perhaps. But to be able to beat 4 drums on his first time here is not bad. Lord, how about we make a bet? I think he can beat 5 drums at most. You really like to surprise people. Alright, I'm in a good mood today, so I'll play with you. I'll bet 4 drums. The two of them spoke one after another. Sir, let's bet. Many soldiers from the war battalion joined the war camp Barak also. They didn't think Lin Ling would win at all. However, their arrogant bet infuriated everyone in the martial god battalion. Instead, a strange phenomenon of divine beasts marching out appeared. Dong dong dong. Qilin Phoenix, an azure dragon came from afar. These divine beasts seemed to have received the call of the god of war battalion, and were about to march out. The 9th drum was sounded. Pa! The fan in Qian Taichi's hand fell to the ground. His face froze as if he had seen a ghost. Dong dong dong. However, the scene of 10 drums shaking the heavens suddenly appeared. In the sky, an army of thousands of divine beasts was marching out. The 10th drum was actually sounded by Lin Ling. Boom! The drum beats were like endless thunder that smashed into everyone's heart. Could it be that this fellow has already seen through the heaven-seeking war drum? His soul power has reached level 800? Huang Fuidao exclaimed. With a powerful soul power, he could find the war drum faster than others. He had always thought that Lin Ling's cultivation was powerful. However, who knew that his barrier was also powerful and his soul power was even more terrifying? For so many years, the God of War battalion has wanted to sound the heaven-seeking war drum. Unfortunately, in history, only 5 people have succeeded. Those 5 people also spend a lot of time. But this is his first time here. The first miracle of the God of War battalion has been created by him. The first person to use the heaven-seeking war drum. The other 2 generals also spoke one after another. As for General Qinghong's side, they were speechless. They had wanted to show off in front of the God of War battalion. But in the end, they had become supporting characters. And Lin Ling now had the absolute qualifications to leave the God of War battalion. This was an endless glory. Lord Lin Ling. Over at the God of War battalion, crazy voices exploded. Xian Yuan Guer, Younger martial god, and the others' beautiful eyes were moist. Lin Ling had indeed not disappointed them. As for Gong Yangjiang and the others, they clenched their fists and were extremely excited. One's glory, one's loss, all's loss. They were from the God of War battalion. So naturally, they did not want to see the God of War battalion being trampled on by others. The drums that have disappeared for 100,000 years have reappeared. Boom! This Lin Ling is really mysterious. Dong dong dong. Above the majestic canyon, the drumbeats spread throughout the world for a long time. Lin Ling, come and see me quickly. Amidst the drumbeats, a smiling voice drifted over from the distance. It's the voice of Martial Sacred Flame Violent Tiger. Huang Fuidao and the other 2 generals' expressions changed drastically. Even Green Rainbow General's pupils constricted. Lin Ling had actually been personally invited by Primeval. The drumbeats that hadn't appeared for 100,000 years had indeed shaken the world. Dong dong dong. At this moment, Lin Ling was still striking the drums. The knot in his heart seemed to have been broken at this moment. This made his heart feel very smooth, and his thoughts were clear. At this moment, his soul power was also crazily increasing, and it gradually reached the realm of 1,300 steps. It must be known that martial artists would have a knot in their heart, and it would eventually become a repressed thought. Perhaps a martial arts movement was not suitable, and this would cause them to ponder for a long time, causing them to not be able to eat well. Or perhaps they had killed too many people, causing them to hesitate. All of these would affect the mentality of a martial artist. Only when one's thoughts were clear could they see the boundless sky. At this moment, Lin Ling had broken through the knot in his heart, and that was to bravely move forward. The 81st drum has been sounded. Lords, can I take Meng Meng and leave the martial god camp? After a long time, Lin Ling retracted his gaze and looked at the canyon. His voice was filled with endless heroism. Yes, the three generals said word by word. Thank you. Lin Ling's lips curled into a brilliant smile. His body moved, and he shot into the distance. He was going to see the marshal. Countless gazes looked at the black-robed figure, and deep within their eyes, there was only deep admiration. As expected of Lin Ling, falling flowers, flowing water, and the others said solemnly. It was Lin Ling's first time here, but he had struck the 81st drum. This miracle would definitely be recorded in the annals of the martial god camp. His heart of martial arts was like a war drum, courageously moving forward. He would rather die than submit. Just like when you beat the Ask the Heavens war drum. Since you've made your choice, then bravely move forward. Qi Yu seemed to understand Lin Ling's temperament. Once the bow is drawn, there's no turning back. Lin Ling nodded. Not bad at all. A smile finally appeared on Qi Yu's face. A long time ago, he had heard from Huang Fui Dao and the others that Lin Ling was a soldier who didn't know his place. Now that he had met Lin Ling today, he realized that his reputation wasn't undeserved. Of course, there was nothing wrong with being unruly and unwilling to submit to others. However, the prerequisite was that one must have the corresponding capital. Otherwise, one would be too arrogant to see oneself clearly. Therefore, he had been secretly observing Lin Ling. But in the end, he discovered that Lin Ling had the capital to be arrogant. His cultivation speed was very fast, and he was an expert in barriers. Even his soul power had reached an unimaginable level. This guy was simply the best successor of the martial god barracks. He was also the most monstrous freak that the martial god barracks had seen in many years. You can leave the martial god barracks and go to the 3 great academies. I'll approve it. The martial god barracks martial seal will be yours. Qi Yu stood up and said. After the previous game of chess, he finally got to know Lin Ling. He knew that Lin Ling was a person who would rather die than live in dishonor. Thank you, sir. Lin Ling hurriedly bowed. In reality, he wasn't very interested in the martial seal. However, he didn't want to refuse Qi Yu. After all, the martial god barracks had treated him very well. You must have started cultivating your soul power when you were young. Your foundation is very solid. However, don't slack off. In the future, you'll discover that the benefits of soul power are more than you can imagine. Qi Yu said again. I'm well aware of that. How could Lin Ling not understand? In reality, his primal chaos divine technique was closely related to soul power. Without soul power, it would be difficult for him to enter a new world. Go. I hope to hear your name in the 3 great academies. Qi Yu stared at Lin Ling indifferently. His eyes shone with anticipation. That was because Lin Ling was the next marshal of the martial god barracks. He was very satisfied with the results of the examination. Chapter 2376. Lin Ling setting off for battle. I won't let you down. Lin Ling said his goodbyes and turned to leave. If you feel like you can't stay here anymore, you can come back. Just as Lin Ling turned around, Red Jade Tiger suddenly said. This made Lin Ling's heart feel warm. He nodded and strode forward. Let me ask you, who do you think I am? Seeing Lin Ling leave, Red Jade Tiger suddenly asked curiously. This was because Lin Ling didn't feel excited or scared when he saw him. It was too strange. I think of you as a comrade. Lin Ling paused his steps and smiled. Then, he disappeared into the bamboo forest. Comrade, haha, what a great comrade. Red Jade Tiger muttered to himself and then laughed loudly. In the entire martial god battalion, only Lin Ling had the guts to do so. However, if Lin Ling wasn't special, how could he be qualified to take the marshal's seal? What a proud guy. Go, the martial god battalion will send you off. Red Jade Tiger sat down again and played 2 roles. He played chess with himself. The bamboo forest swayed quietly, and a terrifying murderous intent filled the air once again. Roar! An illusionary image of a jade tiger, that seemed to be made of glass, also appeared in the sky above the bamboo forest. At this moment, Lin Ling had already left. Although he had only met the marshal once, he had a good impression of him. As for why he wasn't scared, it was because he was Li Xiaoyao. That night, the martial god battalion was extremely lively. It was as if they had won a battle. However, to be able to make the martial god battalion lose face and leave, this was indeed a great victory. After Lin Ling exchanged pleasantries with everyone, he was ready to leave. He had beaten 81 drums and could take 8 people with him. Among them were Xian Yuangur, Lin Xianshen, Falling Flower Flowing Water Sword, Gong Yangjiang, Tang Yue, Qi Tong, and Di Biamo. As for Sword Immortal Song Tian and the others, they stayed in the martial god battalion. After all, they weren't qualified to go to the 3 academies. After Lin Ling and the others left, the martial god battalion suddenly let out a deafening sound of cannons. 3,000 martial god cannons were fired at the same time. Under the night sky, it was exceptionally shocking. From afar, the cannons flew across the sky like bright fireworks. The martial god battalion is sending us off. On top of a mountain range, Gong Yangjiang's group excitedly stopped because this was an endless honor. In the history of the martial god battalion, who had the qualifications to send them to battle? Lin Ling also looked at the fireworks under the night sky. His heart was moved. His life in the military was over. However, this place left him with good memories. It was very beautiful, very iron-blooded, and very manly. Then, Lin Ling pouted and turned to leave. Hearing this, everyone was speechless. Of course, they also knew that Lin Ling was just talking. In fact, Lin Ling's heart must be rippling. What a stubborn brat. Xian Yuangur cursed like a little witch. However, her eyes were a little moist. In the short time she had spent in the martial god battalion, she had sensed an indescribable emotion. It was protection. The martial god battalion was protecting them as they grew up, allowing them to spread their wings and soar. Let's go. Life is full of regrets. In the distance, the handsome blue-robed young man spoke and asked everyone to follow him. Lin Ling's goal was the Resplendent Academy. That was because Yu Yu and the others were waiting for him there. There was also the 5-year battle with Yi Xiaoshou. It was time to fulfill his promise. Most importantly, he could learn more about the Heavenly Court by entering the 3 academies. Everyone hurried along. Along the way, there was endless laughter. However, when they passed through a dense forest, misfortune befell them. Ka. In the dense forest, a large number of armored people appeared. They seemed to have been lying in ambush for a long time. They were the soldiers of the martial god battalion. Haha, you're finally here. Lin Ling, do you regret it? The person leading them was Qian Taichi. At this moment, his face was a little twisted as he appeared in front of Lin Ling and the others. He had led an army to the martial god battalion, and boasted that he would definitely show off the martial god battalion's might. Who knew that he would lose face several times in a row? Now the martial god battalion no longer regarded him as the #1 genius. All of this was caused by Lin Ling. Therefore, how could he let Lin Ling go? Qian Taichi, you dare to attack us? This is forcing our 2 armies to fight. Seeing that the entire forest was surrounded, Falling Flowers Flowing Water knew that it was troublesome. Therefore he immediately spoke. He wanted to use this to make Qian Taichi wary. However, Lin Ling shook his head. Qian Taichi had shed all pretense of cordiality. He would not let this matter rest. Sure enough, Qian Taichi squinted his eyes and smiled faintly. You must be joking. Do you think that you can force our 2 armies to fight? What a joke. Brothers, don't you agree? At the end of his sentence he laughed wildly. Haha, are these people idiots? Who would know if you killed them without anyone noticing? Sir Lin Ling, aren't you very arrogant? Now we want you to kneel down. There are two beauties here. Sir, you must reward us when you're tired of them. The surrounding soldiers all sneered. Of course, of course. Qian Taichi's face was extremely cold. He was like a demonic beast under the night sky, choosing its prey to devour. Sir, what should we do? At this moment, the chess boy hurriedly looked at Lin Ling. After all, there were too many of them. However, Lin Ling didn't seem to be moved. On his handsome face, his eyes were filled with a cold light. Qian Taichi is at the third stage of the World King realm. Moreover, there are 3 senior commanders over there. They are all at the first stage of the World King realm. With so many people, our chances of escaping are only 60%. Falling Flowers Flowing Water immediately said, Sir, can I use money to solve this? Gong Yangjiang even wanted to use money to move the other party. Haha. However, the surrounding soldiers sneered even louder. At this moment, these soldiers didn't seem like soldiers at all. Instead, they seemed like bandits who killed people like flies. If we kill you, your money will be ours. A tall and sturdy soldier sinisterly laughed. Hearing this, Gong Yangjiang was fuming with anger. I know you want to fight to the death. But let me tell you, stop dreaming. Come out, senior apprentice brother Mai. At this time Qian Taichi sneered. He knew that he wasn't Lin Ling's match. After all, he had proven himself not too long ago. But he was already prepared. It's these pieces of trash? Behind the army, a young man walked out. He was playing with a flame in his hand. It was a green flame that was like a firefly. It was extremely dazzling. As soon as this flame appeared, the world seemed to be illuminated. Pressure. An extremely terrifying pressure. His talent was at least a 7th grade mystic body. Sir Mai, it's these pieces of trash. Looking at the young man, everyone immediately let out sounds of worship. 5th stage of the World King realm? Lin Ling also stared at that person. He didn't expect Qian Taichi to find such a powerhouse. It seemed that he was well prepared. Your eyesight is not bad. Now, do you want to die, or do you want me to kill you? Of course, the woman doesn't have to die. Chapter 2377. My Yin First Battle 5th level of World King Realm. Moreover, his talent isn't weak. Sir, it seems that we are in trouble. Sigh. Falling Flower Flowing Water Sword. And the others looked even more solemn. Not to mention the army around them. That young man alone could kill them. After all, their talent was only between the 3rd level of Xian body. You are indeed in trouble, because I am the last generation candidate from Resplendent Academy. My name is Mai Yin. The young man said expressionlessly. What? Sigh. These words made Falling Flower Flowing Water Sword, and the others feel even more uneasy. They were obviously no match for the disciples of the 3 great academies. Their last glimmer of hope was shattered at this moment. Qian Taichi, kill them and I will take 100,000 divine crystals. Sigh. Mai Yin ignored Falling Flower Flowing Water Sword, and the other's surprise, because he was used to it. He had come here for the money. Hearing this, Qian Taichi nodded and sneered. Well, I will kill the strongest first. You come and fight with me. If you are still alive after 3 moves, I will let you go. Mai Yin didn't want to talk nonsense. He pointed at Lin Ling and said. He could see that Lin Ling was the strongest in this group. At this moment Xian Yuan Go-er and the others were worried. They wished they could block in front of Lin Ling. However, Lin Ling also took a step forward. Sure, but our battle will have to go somewhere else. Do you dare? Sigh. Provocation. It's a little stupid, but it will work. Sigh. Mai Yin didn't refuse and nodded. Lin Ling, he is a 5th level of World King. Sigh. Xian Yuan Go-er was even more worried and pulled Lin Ling's hand. Don't worry. Wait for me here. Sigh. Lin Ling smiled and then strode forward. Before I come back, kill them. After all, I am too lazy to kill trash like them. Mai Yin followed Lin Ling and left behind a sentence. In fact, he was willing to leave with Lin Ling because he was lazy. He left Falling Flower Flowing Water Sword, and the others to Qian Taichi and the others. Lin Ling, be careful. We will hold on. Xian Yuan Go-er's eyes were still filled with worry. But, if Lin Ling wanted to fight a 5th level World King powerhouse, she didn't want Lin Ling to worry about them. You won't have to wait long. I'll be back with his head. Lin Ling smiled as he looked at Xian Yuan Gur, then disappeared into the forest. Haha, you're about to die, yet you still dare to speak such arrogant words. I look forward to seeing Sir Mai bring back Lin Ling's head. Hearing his words, the surrounding army laughed maniacally without a doubt. Even Qian Taiji shook his head in disdain. This was because he knew that Lin Ling was only at the 2nd level of the World King realm, and Mai Yan was at the 5th level of the World King realm. Most importantly, he came from Resplendent Academy. He took a step forward and clenched his fists, slamming them towards Lin Ling. Rumble! The entire volcano suddenly shook. The moon-bearing immortal bug flame came from the moon-bearing world. It was a strange flame that was born in the universe. When it was born, it incinerated more than 10 worlds nearby. Only a powerful world could bear this flame. Mai Yan cultivated bitterly in the Resplendent Academy for many years, and finally bought this flame by chance. From then on, he soared into the sky. A 7th grade flame isn't something that you can understand. The sound of insects could be heard. The green flames quickly appeared in front of Lin Ling like a demonic ghost flame. At this moment, Lin Ling's long hair was blown up by the wind. His handsome face was still cold, but wisps of colorful flames were rising in his second dantian. This was the reason why he invited him to this battle. He didn't want to expose his trump card to everyone. Spacetime flame. A mysterious flame appeared in his palm. It was as if he had walked out of the flame. A powerful aura also spread out. Suddenly, the moon-bearing immortal bug flame was blown up. It was actually blown away. This sudden change caused Mai Yan's eyes to flicker. However, he had already made his move. Obviously, he couldn't let it go. Bang! Mai Yan's palm arrived and collided with Lin Ling's palm. Rumble! The two flames collided violently, forming a huge flame barrier that occupied the bottom of the volcano. Pop! 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 Almost at the same time, a terrifying flame shockwave surged up. The entrance of the volcano was flooded. Rocks were constantly falling, but they were burned to ashes before they could fall into the cave. The collision of the two flames was terrifying. Whoosh! However, in the next moment, a figure flew out from the flames. It was Mai Yan. You're also a fire-type martial artist. Exclamations resounded in the cave. Mai Yan was very surprised. He was the one who was at a disadvantage in their first confrontation. You're not the only one who knows how to play with fire. Lin Ling's cultivation level was so much lower than his, but his flames were ineffective against him. This meant that Lin Ling's talent far surpassed his. If a 2nd stage world king was like this, then what about a 5th stage world king? Obviously, he would definitely lose at that time. He finally understood why this young man was so confident. It turned out that he was hiding such a terrifying technique. You can't kill me, so we can only tie. How about we stop here? Mai Yan knew it wasn't good to fight for a long time. Even so, this was a great humiliation to him. But in truth, if he left this time, he would definitely ask an even stronger senior apprentice brother to kill Lin Ling. This was because if a genius like Lin Ling didn't die, he wouldn't be able to eat or sleep in peace. I refuse. However, Lin Ling coldly shook his head. Haha, you can't kill me at all. If we continue to drag this out, it will only be disadvantageous to you, because your world essence isn't as thick as mine. Mai Yan narrowed his eyes as he stared at Lin Ling. Lin Ling actually wanted to kill him? What a joke. In truth, if he knew that Lin Ling had 2 dantians, he wouldn't be able to laugh. Of course, Lin Ling didn't want to fight a long battle, because he didn't have the time. You are very lucky. After I obtained that thing, you were the first one to see it. After Lin Ling began to retract the space-time, Mai Yan was stunned. That young man gave up? This made him nod in satisfaction. This is the right choice. After all, I am from Resplendent Academy, and have defeated countless geniuses in the myriad worlds. I am also somewhat famous in the academy. Although your talent is not bad, you are still a little weak if you want to defeat me. Your senior apprentice brother. Did I say I won't kill you? However, just as he finished speaking, Lin Ling indifferently retorted, causing Mai Yan's pupils to narrow. That young man still wanted to kill him? This caused him to shout angrily. Do you know what you are saying? He didn't believe that Lin Ling had the strength to kill him at all. He didn't believe it at all. Lin Ling shook his head. He didn't want to waste time talking nonsense because my Yen would know. An indescribable aura spread out from his body. The bottom of the volcano cave was silent, so silent that it was terrifying. It was as if the aura of the ancient era had occupied the entire cave. Shocked. My Yen was shocked. He didn't understand why he was shocked, but now, he really wanted to escape. What did you do? He didn't expect that with his high cultivation level, he would be afraid of that young man. That young man was simply a combination of the god of slaughter and the god of flames. All of a sudden he saw Lin Ling's right eye. That eye contained a fatal demonic power. He saw time, space, and finally an ancient stone tablet.